Every so often, the Jehovah's Witnesses will release a watchtower that has you questioning your sanity. You start wondering, looking in the mirror, asking yourself, am I really a part of this corporeal dimension? Has something gone so catastrophically wrong that I've completely lost my mind? And after several hours of vigorous and rigorous contemplation, I have come to the solid conclusion that yes, I am in fact crazy, but the Watchtower writers are equally crazy, so this video is a match made in heaven. I have no idea what I'm even saying in this intro. We're talking about the February Watchtower. Let's look at some cats. Hello and welcome back to the JW Thoughts channel. My name is Wally, and today we are taking a look at the brand new Watchtower February 2026 edition. I did talk about the questions from readers article in here, but didn't discuss any of the actual articles in here. So that's what we're going to do with this video. Quickly before we get into it, don't forget to drop a like on the video. It helps get out to more people on YouTube and is very much appreciated by me. My appreciation extends from this whole heart here over to you. So thank you, all the likers out there. Subscribe, hype, all of that other good stuff. Let's jump right into this. Now, an interesting theme that I've seen pop up more and more is that the actual cover picture, sometimes it's a little bit dubious of figuring out exactly what's going on there. But before, for the entire history of Watchtowers that I can remember, since they had pictures on the covers, they were very easy to figure out exactly what was going to be talked about in this Watchtower. But with these ones, you would look at this picture and like, is this Job with his kids? Is this Paul after he's gotten a beat down and he's doing this? And what does this have to do with baptism and speaking to unbelieving relatives? And the answer is, beats me. I don't really know. There was one, I think the last Watchtower was like this as well, where the cover subject looked like a real life rendition of a Caleb and Sophia, the shirts, the clothes, and everything. I'll put it on screen real quick. But that, I couldn't find any like way that it directly correlated to what was being talked about in the article. So a very strange observation, but you know, we will see how this thing goes. So jumping right into the first article here is how to help your unbelieving relatives. And this is just advice about how to get Jehovah's Witnesses to be slightly less annoying and preachy when it comes to people that don't want to be Jehovah's Witnesses. I found paragraph 6 here to be a little bit interesting because it says, even if our relatives are not yet interested in our beliefs, we should be patient with them, not giving up doing what is fine. We know that it takes time for a person to overcome deep-seated prejudice and to build faith. That also works for ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. If you are someone that is hoping one of your family members wakes up, just remember the same exact principle applies. It takes time for those deep-seated prejudices about any outside ideas or influence or anything that might be considered worldly or apostate, for those prejudices to sort of go down a little bit. So just give it a little bit of time. And then in paragraph 8, this was funny too. It's talking about how some of Jesus' relatives once thought that he maybe was out of his mind. And it says, did his relatives think that he was being fanatical? It is possible. Our relatives may think that we take our religion far too seriously. If they feel that way, we do well to show by our actions how reasonable we truly are. This is a pretty interesting tonal shift. I feel like if this was written in 2005, this would say something to the effect of, you know, even if people think that we're fanatical or we take things far too seriously, that is a sign that we do in fact have the correct religion. That is a sign that we have the truth. God has those high moral standards that set us apart from the world. So you're really doing a good thing if they think you take it far too seriously. Now they're like, well, we do well to show by our actions how reasonable we are. Is this trying to get out the idea of that there's going to be future changes about this long laundry list of rules and idiosyncratic behavior that Jehovah's Witnesses do, or things that they condemn? And are they going to be loosening some more of those rules? We already had that with, you know, the beards and the pants. not wearing a tie all of the time, clinking glasses together, cheersing, all of that stuff. I think that's going to continue in that direction, in that trend. And it's like, hey, look how reasonable we are. But if they're saying that we can demonstrate how reasonable we are as they're making these changes, doesn't that also say that for decades their organization was unreasonable? It's what it says to me anyway. Paragraph 10 here was really interesting. Here, pick it up in the second half. Likewise, do not feel that you have to respond to every criticism. Rather, show your relatives through your actions that you are balanced and happy, and let them draw their own conclusions. They may be moved to reject false information that they hear about us. So this is a classic tactic when you bring something up to one of your believing relatives, and they will just try and shut it down immediately. They don't want to even have a conversation about it. They don't want to talk about those criticisms, and it's trying to just like shift away from like the actual questions being asked. If you go and say, hey, how did your organization be a member of the United Nations? Well, simultaneously saying that they're the scarlet colored wild beast that was being controlled by Satan. You know, doesn't that seem to be a bit of a conflict of interest? What's really going on there? A Jehovah's Witness is going to say, oh, you know, I'd have to look into that further. That's stuff that just happened in the past. And does it really matter? Because paradise, 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 love, love, love. I think that's what you're going to get more of these days. There's not going to be a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses that will be even capable of having a biblical discussion about a lot of their beliefs. And so I think they're trying to, the leadership is trying to mold witnesses to be just happy, clappy people and not try and defend their faith, because if they try and defend the faith, they're going to fail because it's impossible to defend the faith because it's not true. So I think whenever they're mentioning things like this, it's like just trying to shield and protect witnesses while giving them this sense of doing the right thing from having to hear any type of apostate ideas or even try and prove their own faith to someone else entirely. Now, this is the big one that will be directly related to the next articles that talk about baptism here in paragraph 12. This is a clear understanding of Jehovah's mercy can help us to remain hopeful. When false religion comes to an end, our relatives may recall that we had told them about this event. They may even join us in pure worship after the great tribulation starts. So this is something that I have just yammered on about endlessly, just a full-on yapathon. I think this is the most significant doctrinal change to the organization, saying that your unbelieving relatives can see the evidence of all other religions on planet Earth being thrown in the dustbin and Jehovah's Witnesses left standing there. That would be a monumental event, right? Like I would go back. I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm going back to the Kingdom Hall because my ass was way off. I was super wrong. And they're acknowledging that your unbelieving relatives could just do that and they could just come back and they would still get salvation. It's really, really interesting that they make this change, in particular with how they talk about baptism. So let's move in and start looking at some of those articles about the importance of baptism, because the question I have is, why get baptized to get salvation if you don't have to and you would still get salvation? So we kick off this first article here on understanding the meaning of baptism. They have a funny little picture here that shows when you get baptized, you end your old way of life and begin your new life centered on doing God's will. I did find it interesting they are sticking to the boxing thing. I know they've had a problem historically with boxing, mixed martial arts, and all of that stuff being violent sports, there was a strange line that would be an interesting, lively discussion, in particular amongst certain elders and certain circuit overseers, even depending on who it was. Maybe you've had one of these circuit overseers that hates NFL football, and if you don't like American football and you're a Jehovah's Witness, you are in a deep minority. I don't know why, but the highest concentration of like hardcore NFL fans that I've ever met were within the organization. I think it was just something that they were allowed to do, something that almost makes you feel a little bit patriotic. Wow, wires got crossed there for a second. Makes you feel patriotic about your home team and everything like that. Very tribal. So it's something that they can participate in that's not just being a Jehovah's Witness. So I think a lot of people really gravitate towards that. And here in America, like, it's a big, really, really, really big deal. So I find it interesting, though, that they still have this picture that's talking about boxing, because this will continue to fan the flames of, hey, should we do the NFL? Is that allowed? That's kind of a violent sport. The whole thing is to go and just like crack your heads against another man's head and see who comes out on the other side victorious. It's the difference if they're just using their fists versus their body. I don't really know. So it's an interesting, lively discussion amongst witnesses. And if you surveyed 1,000 elders, you're going to see a lot of varying opinions when it comes to this. But let's focus in on this point about when you get baptized, you begin your new life. So here in paragraph 4, it says, a baptism illustrates the dramatic changes that you have made in your life. How? When you go under the water, you show that you have ended your former way of life. When you come out of the water, you begin your new life centered on doing God's will. Brother, who are 90% of the people getting baptized? They're kids. They're prepubescent children. So you're talking to the vast majority, right? Or unless they're just writing this for the minority. The vast majority of people is like a 9-year-old. What is this? You begin your new life now. Like, what was their life before? Did you like take a cigarette and a Batman comic out of a 9-year-old's hands, throw it on the ground, light it on fire, be like, okay, pal, it's time to put down the bottle, put down the stogies. You got to get serious now. If you are a kid growing up in a Jehovah's Witness house, you're already living that life. Even if you're a little bit older and you're a teenager and you're getting baptized a little bit later on in life, which again, this will still account for the vast, I mean, I said 90%. It's probably something like 75%, but it accounts for like 75% of people. This is wholly unapplicable to, oh, you go under the water and it's symbolic. Symbolic of what? Every single week before, you were going to the Kingdom Hall, going out in service, giving comments at meetings. After that, the exact same thing. Like, nothing actually changes. So I just, the mental picture of like, okay, looking over at kids, like, no more SpongeBob for you. It's time for Bible study now. Like, you're taking their candy and just handing them a bag of broccoli. Hey, you got to put that old life behind you. Like, what old life is a kid going to put behind them? I found that absolutely hysterical. So another thing that really had me giggling was here in paragraph 8. The Bible shows that we should make public declaration for salvation, that is, express our faith. How fitting it is then that we do so when we get baptized. The very action that is crucial for salvation. This is where I thought I had lost my mind. 2 pages earlier, they had said that a family member, an unbelieving family member that you've preached to your whole life, but they never accepted the truth. They never became a Jehovah's Witness. They could see the evidence of the Great Tribulation and all false religion being destroyed, with only the Jehovah's Witnesses standing there butt-ass naked in the world, the only religion left, and think, I guess you guys are right. I best be getting my act together and join. They would receive salvation. 2 pages earlier. Now they're saying, hey, don't forget, baptism is crucial for your salvation. You just said it wasn't. You literally laid out a playbook of how to not get baptized and get salvation. So if at all possible, if you're still living with your parents or anything like that, or whatever your situation might be, try and avoid baptism at all costs. I mean, it's so blatantly obvious there right in front of you. Like, well, can't I still get salvation after the Great Tribulation? And it's not as if they can say, well, but you know better. You know better because you've been preached to. They're talking about unbelieving family members that you've been preaching to forever. Like, wouldn't that be a prime candidate? A close family member that you obviously have lots of time with and discussions with, plenty of opportunities to preach to that person. Isn't that a prime candidate of someone that you could say, well, they already had their chance. They already heard about it. They saw the benefits of being a Jehovah's Witness. They just never wanted to accept it. Or say it's someone you're married to. Wouldn't your husband or your wife really know how wonderful it is to be a Jehovah's Witness? Like, wouldn't that be the perfect person to point to say, hey, some people, they might have a chance to come in, but not your family members that you've been preaching to your whole life, because that would lead to a situation like this. So I don't get it. I don't understand how just in a couple of paragraphs later, they can completely just fumble the bag here. How do you call baptism a crucial step for salvation, while simultaneously 2 pages earlier telling people that people that never get baptized can still get salvation? Absolutely blows my mind. Now, there is a picture associated with paragraph 8 here. Your baptism includes a public declaration for salvation. And curiously, there isn't something that at least I'm familiar with whenever they show people making a public declaration ready to get baptized. And that is kids. Usually in all these pictures, they'll have a variety of age groups, but almost certainly you'll have the majority of them be fairly young people. Now, this just made me laugh because Watchtower has at least enough self-awareness to realize that they should stop making printed or video material that directly conflicts with the things that they say in court. So they're like, oh no, children, baptized children? Hey, Bob, have we ever baptized? I don't know. Ask Steve. Steve's not in today. Maybe you'll have to catch him on another day. That's usually the tactic they try when it comes to, hey, do you guys baptize 7-year-olds? One of the things that just really made me laugh when I was leaving and like doing a bunch of research about just all the beliefs that I had as a witness. One of the things that really was funny to me was how adamant that Jehovah's Witnesses used to be and how proud they were that they didn't baptize kids like those dastardly Catholics. Oh, the humanity of it all. No, they would never baptize a kid or a child. But then they would also baptize like 9-year-olds. It was just really funny that they were so proud of something that they essentially also did themselves. Now we're going to go into the next article here about progressing toward baptism. And we have a picture and a couple paragraphs that have a fair bit to say on. So some people who love Jehovah put off getting baptized because they think they lack sufficient knowledge. But how much do you really need to know? Consider a scriptural example. After an earthquake shook the prison where the Apostle Paul and Silas were being held, they witnessed to the jailer and his household. The man and his family likely understood that a miracle had taken place. Additionally, they learned a great deal that night. As a result, they were moved to get baptized without delay. If you know Jehovah, love him with your whole heart, have gained a basic knowledge of Bible teachings, have repented of your sins, and are determined to keep living by his standards, you are ready for baptism. Now, this just got me scratching my head a little bit because I seem to remember David Splain not that long ago yapping about how wonderful New Light was, that they were able to move the organization forward. And so back in the day, they used to baptize people, just quickly right off the street. There were no rules, but now they have to sit down with elders and go through the series of progressions and questions. It didn't seem like that long ago. In fact, let me try and find that clip that I'm thinking about and play that, because I think it would be really funny just to look at how he talked about how it's new light that people have to go through these rigorous testing before they're baptized. And now it's also new light that, do you really need to know that much if you're going to get baptized? You got a basic understanding. Run it. It's all good. So let me find that real quick. I'm talking like it's a live stream, even though I'm going to edit this. It's weird.
Where have I heard about that before? And since that time, Jehovah has progressively guided us to adopt his high standards. Now think about his high moral standards. Nobody is admitted to permanent association with the organization until they have the approval of the elders, until the elders say yes, and they are acceptable. Now, I think back 65 years ago when I started publishing, and I know that many of you have been publishers a lot longer than that, but I can remember back 65 years ago when I started to publish, I just turned in a report. Nobody asked me any questions. You didn't have to be approved. When you got baptized, you didn't go through the questions with the elders. There were no elders. No more. No more. We can see how progressively Jehovah has raised the standard. And what about unrepentant wrongdoers? They're not allowed to remain in the congregation. That wasn't always the case. So we can see how Jehovah God has been progressively guiding us, leading us to a better and better relationship with him.
It's one of those moments that you just kind of think to yourself, the Jehovah's Witness version of God is either schizophrenic or an alcoholic. Like, it's just, you never really know what you're going to get on any given day. So back in the day, as David Splain says, oh man, people, you just started reporting your time. You could just kind of get baptized because that's how it happened in the Bible. And then, oh man, okay, now we have these rigorous rules and testing and blah, blah, blah. And now, I mean, again, they still have those same rules, but I just wonder if in the future they're using this example of someone that studies for one day and then him and his entire family get baptized. Again, I don't know if they're progressing towards something where it's a little bit loosey-goosey when it comes to who exactly qualifies for baptism. What this essentially would be is a numbers retention gambit. This would be an easy way for kids younger and younger, you know, if you think, okay, I mean, really, this is baptism, it's supposed to be in all this important stuff. Can my 8-year-old really do that? Maybe they should wait till they're at least like a teenager, 13, 14, 15 years old. So I think this is ultimately just a way of like getting people to say, oh no, it's fine to baptize your little children. That's totally okay by us. And the article does continue. Some who want to please God focus on the cost of doing so. Of course, it is wise to consider the cost of any decision. Some, though, worry about the sacrifices they will have to make in order to serve God. Candace, who was raised around the truth, felt that way when she was offered a Bible study as an adult. She says, I knew what I should be doing for Jehovah, but part of me held back because I enjoyed what I was doing in the world. I knew that it would be hard to give up those things. Others are concerned about the high standard of conduct for those who get baptized. They worry that after baptism they will commit a serious sin and be removed from the congregation. If such concerns are holding you back, what can you do? So then they take this and do a little sales trick here and like, well, and why are we talking about the cost when we really should be talking about the value? And then they make some value propositions to try and close the deal. But what you really should do is consider the cost. Don't listen to their salesman pitch here. You should really evaluate the cost. What is this going to cost me? And if you measure that against the value of getting baptized, you'll quickly realize that getting baptized has no value. Because as this Watchtower has already said, you could be one of those family members. That could be you that never got baptized, that drifted away, that you are now an unbelieving relative. And guess what? You can still wait for there to be evidence of the Great Tribulation and still get the salvation. So what is the value proposition actually? Now, they have this picture that goes with this as well. She is daydreaming about shaking them hips like Shakira and drinking it looks like she's about to spill that bottle on herself. Is that like what? I don't even know what that is. I think they make like drinks, all sorts of different things in a bottle now. Anyway, this picture looks kind of weird. It's probably just a bunch of AI nonsense anyway, but let's move right along. In paragraph 8 of the same article, reports indicate that some witness parents hold their children back from baptism. The parents focus excessively on their children's education and career, or the parents simply fail to help their children set spiritual goals. What if you feel that your parents could be more supportive of your spiritual progress? Why not discuss the matter with them? Be assured that your age does not need to prevent you from building a close relationship with Jehovah. Yeah, so this is where Watchtower crosses that boundary. Hey, we're getting reports that witness parents are parenting to the best of their ability. The parents of these children are trying to make good decisions about their future. Well, we can't be having that. So we need to step in and wedge ourselves between children and their parents. This is crazy. You have some dudes, some of them who've never had kids before. You're going to try and dictate how someone on the other side of the planet raises their kid, how they want to set them up with their education and their career, and call it a failure. Like, it's really absurd that they have the I mean, it's not really, it's absurd in like a normative context, but in the context of Watchtower, like in that little sphere, I guess it's not that absurd. But yeah, I don't understand why they have to continue to do this, even though they are loosening their grip on a child's education. And yet they're still hammering this home. So I think maybe the whole thing with going to college and everything, it just seems strange now that they keep on saying what they used to say, but they say they don't care as well. Again, like I said at the very outset, this whole Watchtower was a real head scratcher of hypocrisy. Now, one last thing that I want to talk about is the final article here that talks about what to do after you get baptized, how to continue. And it's very fascinating, at least it was to me. So to set this up, it's good to understand how Jehovah's Witnesses use like this buddy system. When you get baptized, you usually have a Bible teacher. If you don't have a Bible teacher, like you've grown up, for most people, they'll have like some type of mentor that is in the congregation, like someone that's just like their pal, big brother programs, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, they have like this pseudo spiritual mentor that a lot of people will have. And because of that, a lot of people's faith is intrinsically tied to that mentor figure. And this person might change throughout time, but it's really interesting talking to a lot of ex-witnesses. One of the big reoccurring themes that I'll hear from people is that they had someone that they looked up to that actually became an apostate. And that really started them on the journey of questioning, because if you have someone that has helped you spiritually, that you look at as a spiritual pillar, you think, okay, this person, I know them, I know how serious they were about the truth. Why would they go apostate? Like, what could those reasons be? And for a lot of people, that will be the first little brick that falls out before the whole tower crumbles. And so this is interesting in how Watchtower is trying to counteract that process that I'm sure they're very well aware of. So we'll just pick it up here in paragraph 12. When you became a witness, you likely felt relieved to leave behind a corrupt world and enter a spiritual and moral oasis. And yet at times you may hear of wrongdoing in the congregation. Some may even be removed from the congregation. Notice how this situation affected a sister named Samar. She says, not long after my baptism, an elder committed a serious sin and was removed from the congregation. I was almost stumbled because I couldn't believe it was possible for an elder to sin against Jehovah in the congregation. Of course, we should always trust that our brothers and sisters of Jehovah want to stick to him. Still, we must be realistic. Each year, some are removed from the congregation. They start that off like it's going to be a report, like, okay, well, each year, X amount of people are removed, and they just like, it's like they had it in there originally, and then someone's like, we really shouldn't say the actual number of people that are removed per year, so let's just edit in the word some. Anyway, and it could be especially challenging if someone close to you or someone you looked up to chooses a bad course. Then it just talks about, focusing on your own relationship with Jehovah, how to have your own personal routine. Gives the example of Peter. We won't get bogged down with that. As a result, Peter was not stumbled. Similarly today, the actions of others do not change the valuable truth you have found with the help of God's organization. Cling to that truth. So they play a very calculated word game here where they are, talking about the spirituality, what helped you find that thing that gives you meaning and joy in your life now. And that thing should never be a person. Never tie it to the person, because if your loyalty is to that person or that family, if they start questioning, you might start questioning. So they want to make sure that that line is severed. They want people to have that so that way they have a positive influence for them to become Jehovah's Witnesses. But once you're baptized, you need to only give glory and praise and respect and loyalty to the organization itself. So I found it interesting how they dealt with this problem that they no doubt are very well aware of, that of having someone's spiritual mentor go apostate, and then that kind of having a total trickle down effect. I've heard stories where 20, 30 people in one congregation all leave at the same time because there is an elder or something happens, they go apostate, big influence. So I'm sure Watchtower, they know better than I do the real life situation. So I did find that one interesting. That is about all I have to say with this Watchtower. So this video has been way too long already. So thank you for sticking around. If you're still here, drop a like, all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys next time. I don't feel like doing the outro. Peace.